During the 1800s, European Jewry was quickly becoming Christianity, as many Jews were abandoning their faith and adopting Christianity as a replacement. Assimilation became a standard and even something to aspire to. In France, in Germany, in different parts of Europe, it all became literally a standard. And if that wasn't bad enough, Russian Jewry was hit by a storm when the same thing was happening there, so much so that they developed a hatred towards their own Jewish brothers, thinking of them as ancient, as archaic, as even the enemy. They all thought that these Jews could become Gentiles and become one with the nations instead of a light to the nations. It all came to a standing halt when the pogroms were hitting the streets and they became a standard, where anti-Semitism was even worse towards the people that adopted these new religions than it was to the rest of the Jewish people. Why did this all happen? Can it happen again? Is it happening again? Tonight, we're going to delve into the next chapter of the Jewish Hashkafa series and see how an imagination and a reality can both be utilized for horrible things as well as necessary tools for us to achieve anything of value in this world. We need the tools, but we have to be careful with them because they're lethal, but they're also necessary. Enjoy, share, and be holy. B'Shem HaShem na'aseh v'natzliach, shiur Torah, bruchim habayim, shavua tov to everybody. We are continuing our series of Jewish Hashkafa, the Jewish ideology, trying to get a better idea of what the mind is supposed to look like versus where it's at today. We have a lot of confused people in this generation, and certainly we don't want to be one of them. So BeEzrat HaShem, this series will help us. Get some clarification of where to think, how to think, and BeEzrat HaShem get clearer understanding of where we need to be. Tonight's shiur will be for the Refuah Shlema for Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, Sarah bat Esther, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahis that continue to learn with us, support the organization, and do all the wonderful things that we're doing, Baruch Hashem. Some of you that have asked me about donations, the donations as far as the different websites that we have, whether it's bhtorah.org or BeEzratHashem.org or YouTube subscription or Facebook or sending a check, they're all the same. Really, quite frankly, it's whatever is easiest for you. You could donate over there if you'd like, BeEzrat Hashem. Also, as a reminder to everybody, our new store, the merch store, is bhshop.org. Some of you have asked me to show this to people because you think it's very cool. So this is the new bag we have in the merch store. It's a very cool bag. Has some writing inside in it, and we got this thing on the store. It's a little pricey, but again, remember, the whole point of these things is not necessarily so you have more stuff in your house. It's for the sake of supporting the organization. So after the cost of all of this stuff, the rest of it goes to the organization to help us do more mitzvot, to help more people get our books for free, and all of the USBs and all the lectures and all the other wonderful things that we're doing. If you want to get something from the merch store, you go to bhshop.org, or you could just go on the YouTube. There on the bottom of every one of the videos or on the channel itself, there's a little store thing over there. You can get a bunch of different products. There's the bag, cups, all types of cool stuff over there for the hardcore fans. Last but not least, just want to let you guys know I will be leaving the country in the next couple of weeks. And BeEzrat Hashem, we'll be going to Israel for a little while. We'll do shooting from there. Obviously, we have the holidays coming up and everything, but the reason why I'm even mentioning it is because some of you have been asking me a lot of questions about the tefillin. And Baruch Hashem, some of you ordered some tefillin last week, so an update on the tefillin. Couple of things. Number one, our tefillin are the best. Simply said, not because of arrogance, simply because I've checked around, I've looked around. The tefillin are unbelievable, and the people that got it last week, and pretty much every time people get tefillin from us, they're truly amazing. They always tell me, oh, now I understand why you say it's so different from the $500 pair or the $800 pair that somebody else was selling. So they come in a cool bag, a BeEzrat HaShem bag, and they're top of the line tefillin, black on black, completely handmade, made by Torah scholars, not by just simple scribes, by actual real scholars that spend most of their day learning Torah, hence the reason why it takes a very long time to actually get a pair of tefillin that's when we order them ahead of time. But the point is that tefillin bags are very, very cool looking, but most importantly, they're amazing tefillin as far as quality is concerned. Now, we have run out of the Rabbeinu Tam tefillin as of last week. The next delivery is probably not going to be until the end of the year, somewhere around November, maybe December. So anyone that orders now, you're not going to get delivery until the end of the year. Rashi, for Sephardic, we have some left, Baruch Hashem, but you'll have to order it within the next week. Within the next week and a half maximum. After that, there's not going to be any more shipments of tefillin until I come back and pretty much a few months from now. So that's, anyone that wants a new pair of tefillin for Rashi, Sephardic, you have to order them within the next week. Again, no pressure, just simply don't want to disappoint people that expected us to send them something that I can't send it. Because the tefillin is one of the things that, and mezuzot are the things that I deal with. And also, this is the same thing pertains to the mezuzot. Also, within the next week and a half, 2 weeks even, if you order them, you'll get the delivery before I leave. If you order it after, then there's really nothing I can do for you. You'll have to wait until we come back. BeEzrat HaShem. For Ashkenazi tefillin, I believe I have one pair left. So if you want a pair of Ashkenazi tefillin, they're on the website as well. All of this is not on the BH shop website. It's on the BeEzrat HaShem store, the main website store, because that's not through an affiliate, that's directly through us. Okay, with that being said, we're going to get to the real business at hand, which is the Holy Torah, Baruch Hashem. And extraordinarily enough, we have achieved something very big last week by completing the 4th chapter of this book, of this series, and we now begin the 5th chapter. The 5th chapter is called Adimyon Sechel. Adimyon can be translated as a non-logical thinking, or simply put, imagination. Imagination, illusion, non-logical thinking, perhaps maybe is the more politically correct version of it. Imagination, I think, is the more common version of it. And that versus the Sechel. The Sechel can be translated as the intellect, or as the simply the rationale, the reality check. The way people speak and the way people write are two different things, and that's why we always try to adjust things. Hence the reason also why it's difficult to take some of these lectures and put them into writing, because the way you speak is not the way you write. And if you write the way you speak, your writing is going to be terrible. And if you speak the way you write, no one's going to understand anything that you're saying. So, with that being said, we're starting a new chapter. And this chapter, I have to fix this camera. Hold on a second. There we go. With that being said, we are going to start this by really see that there is an ongoing fight within each and every single one of us between the imagination and the reality. There are two parts of our brain, two parts of our existence, and there's a constant fight between them. And this is, in essence, something that we're going to delve deep into. Today we're just going to scratch the surface and try to get a better understanding of why the same tool could be either your builder or your destroyer. And it applies both to the imagination as well as the rationale of a person. And this is, in essence, how we're going to start. The imagination bows its head before wealth, and sometimes before the wealthy. It bows down before power, and sometimes before the powerful. It bows down before beauty, before loveliness, before fine buildings, royal palaces, great actions, new inventions. It makes an alliance with the eye and walks hand in hand with the present. Its adversary, the intellect, loves the intellectual side of reality, favors the scales, covets the laws of mathematics and reasoning, and it's drawn to the rules of research. Here, as usual, in the holy way of the Chazon Ish, he gives us a mouthful that we have to surgically analyze each and every single word in order to truly get an understanding. Anyone that reads the books of the sages, just like they read any other book, is simply wasting their time, because you're not going to truly understand it. And I think that some of you that have taken the studying with us a little more seriously than others, and have actually bought the books that each series is about, and have been reading it and studying it alongside watching the lectures, see exactly what I'm talking about, whereas the rest of you that are just simply watching things may not get the whole thing of what I'm saying, and the ones that have just read the book and are just tuning in for the first time certainly have no idea what I'm talking about. So one of the things that I always recommend to people that want to learn Pirkei Avot, which is really the foundation of all Mussar, comes from the Sefer Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, in the written Torah, and the Pirkei Avot in the oral Torah. Those two, side by side, are the foundation of all Mussar, all ethical teachings that's in the world today. Now, everything that you see in the world today, whether it's the books of the Chachamim of today, or the Baalei Mussar, Rabbi Israel Misalant, the Saba Mislabotka, Saba Minavardok, or Rabbi Yitzchak Blazel, everything, all of them come from these two, the Sefer Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, and Pirkei Avot. And of course, it stems to other things. But the point being is that you have the key parts of Mussar coming from a certain place. And we did a lecture series about Pirkei Avot. It was almost 180 lectures. It took us about 3 years. And I always tell people, if you're going to read the Pirkei Avot by itself, you're not going to get very much. If you're going to read it with commentary, certainly you're going to get much more. If you read it alongside our lectures, you're going to get a world of difference from anything else. And the reason why is because the lectures themselves don't just necessarily give you what the Mishnah says and what some of the commentary says, but it surgically analyzes each and every single word in there to the best of our abilities, and in such a way that you know how to apply this to your life. And the same concept is what we've done with all of our lecture series same, obviously this one as well, where we're not just looking at the words of the Chazon Ish and just reading off what the book says. We're analyzing it, we're giving you sources that back it, that support it, that connect with it, and show you how it applies to your day-to-day life. So here, you'll see that the Chazon Ish's language, even though he was only a few decades ago, he speaks in a very, very sophisticated language, and it's not easy to translate. But even after you translate it, it's still not going to give you the full spectrum of it unless you already have some serious Torah knowledge. Now, here the Chazon Ish is telling you some things that perhaps we feel we know. Imagination, rationale. But as we go deeper and deeper into this chapter, we'll see how, as with the first four chapters of this book, the fifth chapter nonetheless is just as deep as the others, and we see how far we can reach with with some of these words. So here the Chazon Ish is telling us that this non-logical thinking we call imagination is one of the things that, whether we realize it or we don't, is actually controlling our lives to a certain extent, our behaviors, and in fact is going to be something that is either going to build you or destroy you. And he says that this imagination bows its head before wealth, and sometimes before the wealthy. Many times people that, I remember I've encountered, used to work for me, even till this day, I could already tell not only where this person is at with their life, but also what their potential is by simply, by superficial talk of what they're interested in, because of the way that they appreciate or embellish or simply, desire wealth. And the Chazon Ish is telling us that this imagination is the reason. Because if somebody did not look at things from a imaginative perspective, and you just told him, listen, you see that guy? He's got $100 million. The average person say, okay, what do you want to eat for lunch? Like, it doesn't mean anything. Gemara says that one of the Chachamim had a very high level of holiness. And one of the reasons was his parents ensured that they never give him any money to look at. Because in those days, the image of the idol worship, of the idol, was on the coins of the countries they were living in. So his parents wanted to make sure that their kid never looked at a coin, never looked at any one of these coins, and therefore throughout his entire life, he never knew what the coins were. And this purity of the eyes helped him see clarifications in the Torah unlike any other. So when a person grows up in a household where money is a constant topic of conversation, regardless of when and where, they're constantly talking about who made what and how much they made and where they made it and how they have this idea to make even more and the contract that this guy signed and how this one just lost and how that one just made, and they're constantly talking about money. What they're not realizing is that conversation that you have between the adults turns into the chinuch, into the education that the kids are getting. So when the kid grows up and is not interested in Torah, not interested in being a Talmid Chacham, not interested at all of even being religious, this is the reason. Rav Wasserman, Alav Shalom, he wrote that the reason why when he came to visit America before World War II, he noticed that the Jewry went down drastically in just a short period of time inside the frum world, inside the religious world. We're not talking about the Enlightenment movement that already destroyed, many, many Jewish communities over the preceding couple of hundred years. We're talking about inside the frum communities, the religious communities. He saw a major downturn in religiosity. And he wrote that the reason for that is because the parents would complain about how they just got fired from their job because of their observance of Shabbos, how they're having a tough time financially because of Shabbos. That's what they spoke about on Shabbos at the shulchan, at the table, and their kids end up not keeping Shabbat. They spoke about money and the loss of it on Shabbat. Their kids grew up and didn't even keep Shabbat. And this is as true as it gets. This is as much truth as you're ever going to get from one of Gedolei Yisrael, because in reality, many times parents come to me and they're disappointed that their kid doesn't want to marry a Jewish woman. Their kid doesn't want to marry a Jewish man. Their kid doesn't want to be religious. And the reality is that anytime you have one of these children that just simply decides he doesn't want to be religious, instead of, pointing at him and putting all the fault on him, the reality is that 9 out of 10 cases, you have to point the finger at yourself. 9 out of 10 times, you have to point the finger at yourself or somebody else that influenced them, whether it's be a teacher or a combination thereof, because even if he has a bad teacher in school, he has a bad rabbi in school, a bad rebbitzin in school, most of the education the kids are going to get is going to be from their parents. And if their parents' religiosity is weak, that is going to turn into rotten fruits. So the imagination that people have has a lot more to do with other parts of your life other than just the immediate things that we would think, which is like, let's say, if you have a certain imagination, you could apply it to your job or to things like that. Imagination literally has a role in almost every single part of your life. And we've already discussed in the Jewish Intimacy series how much imagination has to do with the intimacy and the holiness of the actual act itself. What you're going to end up getting as a result of the act has a lot to do with your imagination. But that is not something we're going to cover today. Today we're going to talk about other aspects of the imagination. Where else does this imagination lead you to? Now, people that know how to control their imagination have a much easier time in controlling their eyes and protecting their eyes from looking at things that are not modest. But if a person looks at everything that moves, this is only going to hurt their mind over a period of time, and by the time they notice it, it's become an addiction. So the Chazon Ish is now giving us a few ideas of where this imagination could go and lead us astray. He says, first and foremost, look at how you view money. When you see someone, or someone tells you, oh, you see that guy? He's got $100 million. Are you one of those people that starts imagining, wow, $100 million? Psh, how did he get it? What did he do? Wow, what I would do. And you start thinking to your mind, what are you going to do if you had $100 million? Yeah, $100 million, I'll buy a plane, but not just any plane. I have to get the $5 million plane, and then I'll get the house, but not in that community, in this specific community, and has to have all these rooms, and has to have all this chandeliers, and you start imagining yourself in all these places, you're letting your imagination lead you astray. You're letting your imagination lead you astray. Rav Ephraim says that really protecting your eyes shouldn't necessarily be just protecting your eyes of not looking at women that are not modest. Really, for many people today, protecting your eyes should also be protecting your eyes and not looking at other people's stuff, like other people's cars, other people's houses, other people's things. Because what ends up happening is that if a person doesn't know how to control their imagination, they start looking at other people's stuff. He looks at his next door neighbor and how he just bought this house, or how he just bought a brand new car, and he starts becoming jealous. And this is a violation of a Torah, lo tachmod. So if a person starts looking at, allowing themselves to look at other people's stuff, they're immediately going to violate one of the laws of the Torah, which is lo tachmod, don't be jealous. Now this is something that you already have to teach kids when possible, because if you simply tell your kid, just look, as long as you don't touch anything, it's okay. You can look at wherever you want. Look at the next door neighbor's stuff, look at their house. When they come home from visiting their friend's house, the parents start asking them, no, so what do they have over there? Oh no, I was just playing with my friend. Yeah, but how did the house look like? I don't know. The kid said, I don't know, it was a house. It had rooms. What did the rooms look like? Did they have nice lamps? Did they have new furniture? I don't know, they had some new boxes. Or what kind of boxes did they have? And, the parents start playing private investigators. So they start sending their kids to the neighbors to go find out what the neighbors have. And then when they see, oh, how are you? I hope things are good by you. Yeah, I heard you guys got some new, washing machine? Parent, yeah. How do you know we have a what? You have a camera in my house? No, our kid told us. Oh, your kid told you about my washing machine? All of a sudden, the parent's not sure. Wait, hold on a second. Why is your kid reporting what's in my house? And believe it or not, unfortunately, some people are so pitiful that that's what they do. They send their kids to the next door neighbor, to other people's houses, not just to play with the kids, but to scout. And what have you taught your kid? You've taught your kid that it's perfectly fine to look at other people's stuff and be a chomed, be a jealous person, covet other people's stuff. You have taught your kid to violate the Torah. It's like you taught your kid idol worship. You taught your kid idol worship. You taught your kid murder. Would you teach him murder? No. Would you teach him idol worship? No. So why are you teaching him to be jealous? Why are you teaching him to be jealous? Rav Ephraim says people have to protect their eyes from looking at other people's cars, other people's houses. Why? Because when you look at other people's stuff, immediately, if a person is not already worked on themselves to the point where they're happy for other people, when other people have good, their natural inclination, if it's not being happy for other people, is being miserable themselves. Oh, how come he got it and I don't have it? They start crying to Hashem. Oh, Ribono shel Olam, why? Why are you doing this to me? HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers him, yes, my son, what did I do to you today? What did I do to you? Ribono shel Olam, El Rachum v'Chanun, the merciful God. Why? Why have you done this to me? Even Hashem is stressing. Malach Gabriel, Malach Michael, what have we done to him today? Why is he crying? Yesterday he was crying for one thing. What is he crying about today? Even HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking at you. What is he crying about? Ribono shel Olam, why did you give him a new car and not me? This is what people cry about. They cry about other people's stuff. Instead of thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything that they have, they cry about other people's stuff. Why? Because you looked at it. Why'd you look at it, Bichlal? If you don't know how to be happy for other people, don't look. Protect your eyes from that. It's not just don't look at other people's wives. It's not just don't look at other people's significant other, her husband. No. Don't look at their stuff, because it's going to bring you to a bad place. And that's one of the things the Chazon Ish is telling us right off the bat. People's imagination bows its head before wealth, and sometimes before the wealthy. As soon as they see somebody with a lot of money, they already start, all of a sudden they're bowing, like they don't even know what to do. Wow, what would I do with $100 million? Wow, no, he doesn't have $100 million. That was $100 million just in that one transaction. He has $1 billion. Oh, wow, maybe I could just, maybe he can give me like 10 million. It's nothing to him. What, he has $1 billion? Why can't he just give me 10 million? It's nothing to him. And all of a sudden people start imagining, oh yeah, I'm going to tell him I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and he's going to give me 10 million. Because just because he has money, then that means he should give it to me. And they start imagining themselves, and then when they ask the person for help or for an investment, and the person says no, what do? Naturally, they hate him. They hate him. Oh, so why, you don't want to help me? That's how you are? Why, you're better than us? Why, all your billions, you don't want to help us? And the guy says, no, it's not about that. It's just that I don't do what you're asking me to do. I'm not interested. What? Just because he has money, he has to give it to you? But that's the foolishness of society. That's the foolishness that comes from imagination. I remember years ago when I was still on Wall Street, there was a market crash in the end of 2007, and that market crash showed, obviously how inflated the economy was, especially in the world of real estate. There was a lot of corruption, a lot of scandal, but a lot of people wanted to blame the executives of Wall Street companies and the banks, and the reality is the bigger fault was really more on the consumer, or at the very least as much on the consumer as it was on the banks. Why? Everyone was milking the cow. Everyone was taking advantage of it. The guy that was making $30,000 a year but buying $1 million house didn't have a problem with it so long as the corrupt system worked. When did he finally have a problem with it? When it didn't work anymore. And that's one of the things that happened after the whole crisis. All of a sudden you had a bunch of people start protesting in the street. Oh, you should put these executives in jail. You should, wait, hold on a second. Maybe you should put yourself in jail, because didn't you buy 3 or 4 or 10 or 50 properties even though you can't even afford one of them? You had no problem buying those properties so long as the, wayward system worked for you. But now, all of a sudden, it crashed and you lost the money. Now you want to protest. Now you want to sue. And the same exact thing is happening now. Same exact thing is happening now, where you have certain parts of the system have changed. The interest rates have gone up. And all of a sudden, you have all these protests. Protesters in general, for the most part, are simply people that are complaining that their personal issues, not society's issues, not the public's issues, their personal issues are bad. They don't care about the public. They care about their own personal agenda. That's generally protesters it's coming from foolishness and selfishness, even though it should be the opposite. Now, one of the things that you see is that many times people bite off more than they can chew in the world of money, where they overbuy, overspend, overinvest, over. Why? Because their imagination is at work. Their imagination is at work, and they figure that, listen, if I buy $100,000 worth, then that, he has 100,000, he wants to buy 100,000, then I can make, let's say, 20, 50% on that money. Great. So in a year from now, I'll have 150,000. But I'm still not going to be a millionaire. Who said you have to be a millionaire? Well, he has $1 million. So what if he has $1 million? Why does that mean that you have to have $1 million? No, I need to catch up. So now what does he do? Well, even if I make 50,000 every single year for the next 10 years, I'm still not going to have $1 million. So what does he do? He said, you know what? But maybe I can leverage it. Instead of 100,000 buying 100,000, I'll take the 100,000, I'll leverage it to buy $500,000 worth of stuff. Now, although financially that may be a valid argument, if all of the risks, adjustments are things that you can handle, but many times people don't do things based on risk. They simply assume they're going to win. And it's all based on this imagination of how they need to get to where somebody else they saw is. It has nothing to do with their own personal circumstances. It has to do with where they need to be because they saw somebody else. And many times it's because they saw somebody successful or someone that looks successful, and that automatically changes their perspective of how they are behind. Somehow, because he has succeeded, she has succeeded, you now are behind. Even though you have everything you need, you have food to eat, you have a roof over your head, you have shoes, you have car, you have a job, you have everything you have. But no, you're behind now. Why? Because they have more. Now, ambition is very important to have, both in learning as well as in business. But when that ambition is purely motivated just by imagination, it can become a sick type of ambition that could lead to destruction, even if it starts off with success. And the Chafetz Chaim already wrote 100 years ago that we have seen more and more, even in his day, people gain extraordinary wealth in a relatively short period of time and also lose it overnight. Something that is really against the norm. Usually, wealth takes time, and even to lose takes time. But what we've seen over the last 100 or so years, 200 years, is that extraordinary wealth was gained in a relatively short period of time, but lost in even shorter period of time. Anyone interested in a real life story, just watch my movie. HaShem took back his millions. It's a perfect example of this. Even more so now, nearly 20 years after the story, where you see people today, literally, young kids, making millions of dollars off of YouTube videos and all types of applications and all types of other things that people are making. And extraordinary wealth is made, but also you're seeing greater fortunes lost. Like the guy with the Bitcoin exchange, literally one day was worth $38 billion. A year later, he's on his way to jail with zero. So this is one of the things where imagination goes out of control. So if a person bows their head, the second they see success, they already need to know that if there was a chart with colors on it, where the green is good, the yellow is like mediocre, and then red is bad, you're at red. Already on day one, you're at red. You're in a bad place. Why? If you're bowing your head every time you see wealth, if you are changing your behavior when you see wealth, if you are literally, your mentality, your future, everything is dependent on this wealth, you're in a bad position. Why? Because even if you got it, you wouldn't be able to handle it. And in fact, it's a much bigger test to have wealth maintained than it is to actually gain wealth. Most people think that the harder part is to gain wealth than to actually maintain it. It's the opposite. Getting wealth is obviously always requires a blessing, always requires Hashem's will for you to gain it, but to maintain it is certainly even more of a blessing than to getting it. Because it's literally getting that original blessing over and over again on a daily basis, rather than just a one-time thing. Now, if a person is going to have their own self-worth determined by wealth, this is certainly going to lead them to bad places, because so long as you're not successful, you're not going to be happy. And even when you do achieve success, the Gemara in Masechet Succah says, somebody that loves money will never have enough money. And furthermore, the Gemara says, someone who loves money will not even will never get to even half of what he wants. Will never get to even half of what he wants. Why? Because what ends up happening is that the more a person actually acquires, the more they want. So when they had nothing, they wanted to get to $1 million, let's say. Okay, once they got to $1 million, they figure sky's the limit. Okay, I want 2 million now. Then if they got to 2 million, now they want 4 million. Which means that the more they acquire, the more they feel like they need. It's not an ambition, the more I feel I can get. It's they now have, after they celebrate momentarily what they got, they now start suffering that they don't have more. This is the reason, or the answer for all of those people that ask the question of why do the billionaires continue to go to work? Why do they go to work? The guy already has $1 billion. Even if he spent $100,000 a day, he still would never run out of money. Why continue going to work? Oh, he likes his job. Spare me the nonsense. It's not because he likes his job, because if he sells the company the next day, that means he didn't like his job. If he liked his job, he would never sell the company. If he liked his job, he would never have anybody replace him for some of his positions. It's not the job. He's going to work because he wants to make more money. Now, in your $10,000 net worth mind, $100,000 net worth mind, $1 million net worth mind, that doesn't make any sense. It's $1 billion. Why go to work and make more money? It's already have enough. No. In his mind, he needs another billion. He doesn't want, he needs another billion. Because it all stems from that original mindset, which is bowing down to wealth, bowing down to materialism. There was a person that got somewhat of a clarification of where he stood in comparison to where he thought he stood when he came to visit Rav Shteinman. Rav Shteinman, anyone that knows, seen some of the pictures, he was one of the Gdolei Israel, just left our world just a few years ago at an age of over 100 years old, and he was a giant Talmid Chacham, an extraordinary Baal Mussar, and his house literally was like one of those houses that, that you have a lot to learn from, because it was the simplest house you could ever imagine. You couldn't imagine that one of the biggest sages of the generation lives there. You would think that some homeless person maybe is living there or something like that. But when you walk into this house, the simplest house in the world, and that's actually one of the big lessons that many people would come, see his house, see how his bed is made out of milk crates. And he has it, and he just literally takes the desk and starts learning Torah right next to it. Literally just the simplest house in the world. And many people would come and get world-changing advice from him, from this simple house. Even though millions and millions of dollars would pass through his hands, it would always go to different people, to the yeshiva, to the bachurim, to the poor people. They even asked him if he's willing for them to get him a new house, to fix his house, anything. He said, why? I'm happy like it is. I'm happy as I am. One time, there was a group of professionals that came to visit the Rav Shteinman. And one of these people was a pilot. Apparently a very established and proud pilot. And he had some words to say, secular mentality, completely ignorant of what a Torah sage is, what a gadol is. And he comes into the house and he looks and he makes comments out loud. Why didn't he paint this house? Why does it look like this? And the other people, shh. It's one of the biggest chachamim in the world. Chacham no chacham, why didn't he make a nicer house? What's wrong with this guy? Rav Shteinman, who was sharper than a knife, clocks this guy. He says, "Hi, how are you? Thank you for coming. What do you do?" He says to him, "I'm a pilot." A pilot? To explain to what's his pilot? Oh, the planes. Oh, you're Balegula Bashamayim. The guy says, who? What? You're Balegula Bashamayim. He asked the guy, what is he saying? The people were say, you're a taxi driver in heaven, in the sky. No, what do you mean? He got so offended. Whoa, no, wait, what do you mean? I'm a pilot. 300 people. I take 400 people on a plane. Oh, so the Rav Shteinman says, oh, so Agula, Bashamayim, a bus maybe. Not a agala, not a caravan, not a little carriage, a bigger carriage. All of a sudden, this guy's ego went from where he thought he was back down to reality, because no one in the world ever talked to him that way. No one ever put things in perspective that in reality, what's the big deal of what you do? What? You fly a plane, you go like this, it goes up, it goes down, you carry people, you're Baligula. In a previous generation, they didn't have planes. So they had somebody taking a whip and on the horse or on the donkey. That's it. Things have advanced a little bit. After they went to cars, then they went to the planes, and you're one of the guys with the planes. You're Baligula. You're the one, you're a taxi driver in the sky. What's the problem? What? Is there any falsehood in this? No. It's 100. But he didn't like it. Why he didn't like it? Because that reality check was very, very different than what his reality was. Because he's living in his imagination. Because in his imagination, his position, his job is, I don't know how many thousands of hours that he's proud of that he flew in the air, because, pilots are very proud of how many hours they fly. It's one of the statistics that shows where you stand and how much experience you have. That put him in a different status, according to his imagination. But if you compare that to a real reality check of how things have evolved in the world and where you stand in that big world, you're Baligula. You're Baligula. So one of the things we see is that if we allow the imagination to lead us, things can go really ugly. If we simply look at it from a monetary perspective. Furthermore, the Chazon Ish says the person bows down to power, and sometimes before the powerful. Sometimes people are just as impressed or even more impressed with people that are in a position of power. Not necessarily always connected to money, but as soon as they see somebody that's in a powerful position or they hear about him, he comes in, oh, yeah, you see that guy? Yeah, he's the mayor. Oh, wow, he's the mayor. Wow. Oh, so that's, wow. They invite the mayor, and he comes to the community, and he speaks to everyone as if he's their leader. And he tells them, yeah, listen, we have this, and we love this, and we do this. And he starts giving Mussar to the whole community of how great. After the talk, one of the people says to me, where is he a mayor of? What is he a mayor of? Oh, he's a mayor in it's like this place. It's somewhere in between like Tennessee and somewhere else I never heard of. Over there's a tiny little city over there. Right next to that city, he's a mayor over there. Wait, so why'd you bring him here to our community to speak to us? Well, he's a mayor. Mayor? Who knows? Like, how does this affect us? You know what happened here? Simple. They're so impressed with the title, with the theoretical power that it doesn't make a difference how it's going to affect you. This unfortunately happens in all communities that put politics on the top of the list of important things. And unfortunately, there's been a huge amount of, let's just say, time and resources spent on politics in the Jewish world in recent years, where all of a sudden you're seeing, instead of bringing extraordinary Torah scholars, celebrating the Torah, giving another opportunity for another Torah scholar to discuss things to help the community, giving them Mussar, what have you seen? You've seen all of a sudden we have one community after another giving a honor to some politician, or giving some major dinner to some politician, another politician. And then you see all these morons that literally, I cannot call them anything else, start making blessings next to some of these politicians as if they're kings. Violating the Torah on top of with the blessing and literally saying Hashem's name in vain, on top of the fact that it's literally just a busha v'cherpa. Now, I'm not saying we need to be against politicians and insult them or anything like that, but put things in perspective. Put things in perspective. You see major rabbanim getting less attention, less kavod, less resources than the simplest politician in the world. And I've seen this, literally entire organizations change from being rabbinical organizations, religious organizations, to being simply a Jewish political arm, where it just became, politically focused. And it's sad. Why? Because the Jewish people do not need more politics right now. The Jewish people need more Judaism. Oh no, when I try to tell some of them, listen, I understand, you want to, help people and so on, but why don't you press maybe more good for Judaism rather than more politics? Rather than bringing more police officers and mayors and presidents and whatever other politicians in between all of them to the different communities, why don't we do make a campaign for people to learn the Shas, or for yeshivas to take down the price because you're getting some, assistance from the community itself, or whatever you're going to do, but publicize more Torah. No, we are helping the world of Torah. How? How are you helping with the world of Torah? By what? Getting another guy to be elected, to promise us what he's going to do while he's running to get the votes, just to see that he is another one of the million people that once he got into office, he doesn't do anything that he promised? What, you haven't learned from the previous 1,000 stories? And even if he helps us theoretically, this so-called politician, how long can he help us for? Another 2-year term before they throw him out? There's so much resources invested into politics today that literally it's become like some form of idolatry almost. And you're seeing rabbis talking about politics a lot instead of Shulei Torah, and in a fashion where it's like, sometimes you're seeing that there's almost a comparison being made of the sages and others, where I've seen some people actually like this Kofer, Ben Shapiro and some of his colleagues, what is the other guy, Prager, and some of the other Kofrim that we've talked about in the past, where they actually believe that the Mashiach Tzidkenu, Mashiach HaShem is going to be a political figure. They have delved into the world of politics and the world of theoretical power so deep that they actually think, and they believe this, and they say this out loud, openly and proudly, and with all confidence in the world, that they believe that the Mashiach is going to be a political figure. Partly it's because they think they are the Mashiach. It's coming from arrogance, because they think that one day they'll run for office, or they'll be part of some type of political stance, and it could very well be them being Mashiach. I would not pass that beyond them. I'm certainly confident in saying that. But even beyond that, it's so far away from the truth that you see here that their imagination and admiration to the point of obsession with politics has taken him so far away from the Torah, it's become a new religion. Now, if it was just a couple of people here and there, it wouldn't really be worth the time to spend it in a shiur. But unfortunately today, you're seeing it everywhere. You're seeing it in a lot of different places, a lot of time, a lot of resources spent on chasing power. And if that's not the only place, if that was the only place, it would be, it would be a, good. But the reality is that it's in a lot of other places. You also see the obsession with power in every community that has a board. Every synagogue, yeshiva, that has a board of directors. And usually the board of directors are people that have, wealth. Not necessarily da'at Torah, not necessarily even religious. But they have money. And many times that money, that position is taken in into bad places. And that's why you're seeing many times the synagogues that even could have leading rabbis or founding rabbis that were very good and very righteous, led astray because of who's really calling the shots. The board of directors that's comprised of amei aratzot, complete ignoramuses, people that don't know anything, but they have money. And that's what the Chida said nearly 250 years ago, almost 300 years ago. He said Judaism declared bankruptcy when the rabbis started accepting money from rich people. Meaning that in the previous generations, the shul was his. There was no board of directors. If you want him to be the rabbi, that means that he calls all the shots. There is no discussion. Simply put, he's the rabbi, he's the opinion of everything. He is the conclusion of everything. As soon as you have board of directors in yeshivot, in synagogues, you're starting to see how the synagogue is no longer serving its purpose. It's become just a place to pray. And many times not even that. Instead of it being a place where there's going to be a center of Torah, where you're going to bring shulim there, you're going to bring different guest rabbis, you're going to have all types of activity that has to do with Torah coming out of this place. What are you seeing? You're seeing the personal preferences of the board of directors. So the board of directors doesn't necessarily want a shiur Torah. They don't want to pay this rabbi to travel from Israel. They don't want to pay this other rabbi to travel from a different state. They don't want to pay anybody. They say, listen, the rabbis come for free, but the clown and his two little sidekicks, we'll pay them $3,000. We'll pay them $5,000. Oh, the blow-up house? Yeah, we'll pay $10,000 for that. Because the kids like it. Yeah, but I understand the kids like it, and sometimes you have to do things for kids in the blow-up house, but what about the Torah part? And you're seeing how the resources of the community and the mentality of the community turns this place of Torah into moshav letzim, a place of jokesters, of jesters. You have all of these so-called events where the kids just come over there just to get toys. Why? Because they listen to about 5.5 minutes of Dvar Torah, so they get a $30 toy. This is a waste of money. And then when the synagogue actually wants money to expand, to maybe build a kollel, something else, nobody has any money. Why? They spent it all on toys. This is not something that's the kids' fault. This is the people that are obsessed with power's fault. Because now that you've put people that are obsessed with power, have structured their system where you have a board of directors and you have secular people or people that are simply ignorant of Torah running the show, they're going to tell you, listen, we want a blow-up house. We want a zoo. We want toys. We want everything but Torah. And literally, I speak to people about this once in a while, and it's because it's just something I don't really even like to talk about because I get animated over it simply because I see how far people's mentality is. I speak to one guy that's a president of a shul. President of a shul, there's at least 500 people in the community. But to get 20 people to pray is a big deal, except if it's the holidays. Holidays, they'll get 200-300 people. But during the week, you're lucky if you're getting 20. I tell them, listen, you just did a major event. You brought all these, circus. to your synagogue. Why don't you arrange a major Shabbaton or a lecture or something? A few rabbis, I don't know, something. I don't know. I don't know if people are interested in that. Like, what do you mean? It's a synagogue. Yeah, but the people are not that religious. Exactly, that's the point. You're the president. It's your job to make them religious. It's not your job to be some administrator that's going to bring balloons to the synagogue. Your job is to make them religious. The second you became part of that board, the second you became part of that board to the extent where you're the president or you're somebody important in the community, everybody's responsibility is on yours. And guess what? Every single one of them that does not become religious, you will inherit all of their sins. And that's what the Gemara says in Masechet Shabbat. That's what the Gemara says in Masechet Avodah Zarah and countless other places. Anyone that is in a position of power to help other people not sin and doesn't do anything about it, all of their sins go to his account also. All of the sins go to her account. Instead of bringing clowns and sheep to the community, bring rabbis that actually have Yirat Shamayim. And unfortunately, Rabotai, millions and millions of dollars are spent on complete nonsense. You have some communities are obsessed with sending their kids to Israel without even calculating the fact, wait a minute, I'm going to send my teenage kid to go on a trip to Israel so he's inspired with Israel. Wait, what is he going to be inspired by? Is he going to be inspired by the Torah he's going to learn there? No, they're not going to learn Torah over there. Why? Because he's going on a trip with boys and girls, and HaShem only knows what kind of sins they're going to make and how much alcohol and drugs they're going to do on this trip. In so many words, you're lucky if he comes home in one shot, in one piece. But parents, no, we'll send him to Israel. We'll send him to Israel for a year. We'll send him to Israel for a weekend. We'll send him to Israel. Those trips, many times, cause more damage than good. Why? Because the amount of sins that the kids are making because of the lack of supervision, or the terrible supervision, I should say, it should never be a trip. Boys and girls going on the same trip, teenagers, just send them to a volcano to have a good time. And then parents are surprised that their kids get into drugs or going to intermarriage or all types of other problems. This is all coming from bad leadership. The series we have, Ikvita de Meshicha, or Era of Mashiach, based on the Sechel by Rav Wasserman, that he wrote before the Holocaust. At least 60%, if not 75% of the book is discussing the failure of the generation being due to the failure of the leaders. He calls them the Bad Shepards. And nothing has changed. Aside from losing 6 million Jews in the Holocaust and millions more due assimilation, nothing has changed. Because the obsession of power is still there, but it's not good power. There's a lot of obsession over politics, and it's not bringing us to any good places. So the Chazon Ish says, if a person is bowing down to power and sometimes to the powerful, it's already on that hypothetical chart that we said, where green is good, yellow so-so, and then red is terrible. You're terrible. He bows down to beauty, before loveliness, before fine buildings, royal palaces. Here, the Chazon Ish brings us another few. And of course, the imagination can lead a person to the worst places in the world once he starts looking at places he's not allowed to look at. Because once a person allows himself or herself to look at other people's husband and other people's wives and simply something that's not his, that imagination will start working. That imagination leads to immorality with self, wasting seed. It leads to promiscuity. It leads to a lot of horrible places. Now, in the beginning, when he's just a kid, he doesn't think it's such a big deal until he watches the movie Tikkun HaBrit that we made and realizes that it's a horrible mistake that only gets bigger over time. But if he doesn't have the fortune to watch that film, like some of our students that are teenagers and literally have transformed their lives as a result of realizing the mistake they were making, and he continues with this addiction, eventually that wasting seed leads to promiscuity with other people. And the promiscuity with other people gets worse and worse over time. Why? Because as soon as the Rabbi Yochanan said in the Gemara Masechet Succah, that there's a small member in a man's body, one who satiates it will always be hungry. One who starves it is satiated. Meaning that the more you feed this imagination that leads you to promiscuity, the more you feed it, the more hungry you'll become. Once he is promiscuous with one person, he'll want to be promiscuous with more. He'll feel like he needs more. She will feel like she needs more. The Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin says something horrific about the female body that's promiscuous. That makom is never satiated, can never have enough. A woman that's promiscuous literally will never have enough, to the point where she'll become desperate and do anything and everything, including other species. The sages were as clear as day with their language and what they said, and didn't just make extreme statements for no reason. We see this in society. Men and women that were not taught the proper Mussar, the proper morals and ethics, the proper Hashkafa, are quick to become promiscuous. And it's not promiscuous with just having a boyfriend right before they get married. No, it's literally complete levels of insanity. Now, if a person allows himself to look at all of these things, the movies, the pornography on the internet, all that filth, all the garbage that's out there, he himself, she herself, doesn't realize that they have just become addicted to something worse than crack cocaine. They think it's fun. They speak about it freely. They're proud of it even. When did they become miserable? When finally their senses come to them and they realize that all of this promiscuity has ruined their chances of a normal relationship. Because now he wants somebody that's like he saw on a screen. But in reality, it's not going to happen. She wants somebody like she met that one time in that one place for 5 minutes. But that's not going to happen in reality. They want a constant taboo. But that can't happen in a real relationship. They want excitement all the time. It's not possible in a real relationship. They want things that are products of the imagination. And this leads them to a life of misery. Because even if they married someone they theoretically love, they're still not happy. Because they may love that person emotionally, but that's only when they're in front of that person and everything is working right. But the moment things are not right, or if there's an argument, or there's some type of other emotional shock, of loneliness, of depression, or some other thing, immediately they go someplace else. And many times they cross the line. And many times that crossing the line becomes even a worse condition that they started with, getting to a point of even thinking about suicide. And this is actually one of the things that one of the women that did a tshuva story with us, which BeEzrat HaShem will publish soon, she said she has talked to several of her friends that have actually crossed the line and cheated on their husbands. And she said almost in every case they become suicidal. In every case they become depressed, and almost in every case they become suicidal. Because it's not just that they did something terrible to someone that they care about. It's that they know they can never do it again. And that makes them even more miserable. And this is one of the things that the average person doesn't understand. Because if a person allows their imagination to control themselves, to control their life, that imagination will lead a person to jealousy. And the Torah Kedosha, the Holy Torah, has taught us multiple examples of where this imagination leads a person. The Mishnah in Masechet Avot, chapter 21, Mishnah number 21 in chapter 4, says, Rabbi Elazar HaKapar Omer, Akina ve'ata'ava ve'akavod motzi'in et ha'adam min ha'olam. Rabbi Elazar HaKapar says, jealousy, desire, and honor remove a person from the world. What does it mean, it removes a person from the world? Aside from losing eternity and going to Gehenna and Kafakela and all these horrible places after he dies, the Mishnah is referring to losing their world even here, living a life of misery here. And several of the examples of literally losing both are across the Torah. And Rav Ovadia in Anaf Etz Avot brings a few examples. And he says, just from the beginning of the Torah, the serpent was given a gift among all of the animals. HaShem created the serpent as a speaking creature that was the most beautiful out of all the creatures out there, and also was walking like a man and had arms and legs like a man. In order for this serpent to be the king of all of the animals. But this wasn't enough for him. He wanted more. He wanted more, and the Gemara says that he wanted to marry Chava. And the Bereshit Rabbah, chapter 20, section 8, says that after he convinced Chava to sin and to entice Adam to sin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu punished him, because his whole goal was to get her to get Adam HaRishon to sin, so HaShem would kill him, so there he could marry Chava. So when HaShem punished him, what was the first thing that he did? He says, I created you so you could be a king of all the animals and the beasts of the field, and you shall walk erect. However, now you will slither on your belly. Two angels came down from heaven and cut off the serpent's arms and legs, and his screams were heard around the world. Further, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, I said that you shall eat and drink food that's fitting for people. Now, because you made them eat this fruit, the forbidden fruit, you shall eat dust all the days of your life. So the serpent wanted just a little more. And he lost everything, including what he had. Cain was jealous of his brother Hevel because, as the Pasuk says, that Cain was born with one twin that became his wife in order to reproduce and populate the world. And Hevel was born with two twin sisters. And that time was the only time in history that it was allowed for a brother to marry a sister, because there was no people in the world. So HaShem had this exception made only at the creation of the world. And Cain was with one sister, and Hevel was with two sisters, two wives. Cain was jealous. Cain was jealous that his brother had two wives, and he wanted all of the wives to himself. Why should he have any of the wives? I'll have all three wives. He wanted the entire world for himself, and the Midrash Rabbah Bereshit says that HaShem not only punished him, that he ended up losing his position in the world, that instead of gaining the world, he had to wander the earth for the rest of his life, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu put a mark on him, on his forehead, which would eventually lead to him getting killed. What was the mark? Some say that the mark was a dog. Some say it was a certain sign in his head. But the Bereshit Rabbah says, according to Rashi, there was actually a horn. There was actually a horn on his head because he acted like a animal of what he did. So Hashem made him look like an animal in so many words. Put a horn on him. And that horn was the reason why he was shot dead by his grandson, Lemech. Because he thought that he was an animal, hunting. So his jealousy of wanting more than what was given to him led to his complete loss, even of what he had. Korach was jealous of Elitzaphan ben Uziel because he wanted that Moshe to appoint him instead of Elitzaphan. Instead of accepting the Din Shamayim, the law of heaven, he went to war with Moshe, and instead of gaining, having the extraordinary wealth that he had, a great position that he already had, everything that he had was good. Instead of maintaining everything that he had, he chased after something extra, and he ended up losing everything, including his life and his eternity, as the ground opened up and swallowed him and all of his followers. Doeg was one of the heads of the Sanhedrin. He was an extraordinary Talmid Chacham in his 30s. Him and Achitophel. Both of them were some of the great sages of the generation. But both of them, in different time frames, were jealous of David HaMelech. Because of their jealousy of David HaMelech, instead of being happy with the extraordinary gifts that Hashem gave them, to be extraordinary Torah scholars, to have everything you could possibly want, they were jealous of David HaMelech. Doeg was jealous that David HaMelech was always right about halacha. Everyone would paskin like whatever David said. Not because he was the king, but because he was right. That wasn't good for him. So what did he do? He said Lashon Hara about David HaMelech. The Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin says that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu eventually punished Doeg, he sent 3 angels. One, to cause him to forget all the Torah that he has ever learned. The one thing that was good about him was that he had Torah. Hashem had to remove that. 2, one angel to burn his soul, and the other one to spread the ashes everywhere. That's how harsh his punishment was. That all began with jealousy. Achitophel, he was Batsheva's grandfather, or father actually. So he literally was not only close to David as far as a colleague, he was related to him. He was a father-in-law. But his jealousy of David led him to go against David HaMelech by trying to get Avshalom, David's son, to kill him. When he realized he's wrong, he committed suicide. Instead of gaining something, being happy that he's connected to the greatest king, to sage, to Gdol Hador, he was jealous of something small. He lost everything. Same thing goes with Bilam, Gehazi, Avshalom, Adonyahu, Uziyahu, Haman. Literally, one after another. This is all, Rabotai, is what we learn from our sages. And the Torah tells us this could all be learned from the wayward woman. A woman that's an adulteress. In the Torah, in Parashat Naso, there is a section in there that talks about the Isha Sota, the wayward woman, the woman that committed adultery and cheated on her husband. It says, what happens to this woman? If she drinks the water at the Bet HaMikdash, she blows up and dies. So she loses everything. But if she doesn't drink the water, and she simply admits, yes, I cheated. So what happens? She still loses everything. She just doesn't die. Because she's no longer allowed to be with her husband, since she cheated on him, and she's also not allowed to marry the man that she committed adultery with. So either way, she loses everything. Why? She wanted more than what she was given. So when a person does not allow their common sense to control their imagination to a certain extent, is bound to go to the worst places you could possibly imagine. They will certainly never have shlom bayit. They'll never have a good marriage. They'll never be happy with whatever they have. Because if she's looking at our friends and our neighbors and what they have, she'll always be unhappy with her husband. Why? Because somehow the grass is greener on the other side. She's going to look at how her friend or her sister or her cousin, her husband just bought her a present. Her husband just bought her a new refrigerator. Her husband just bought her a new car or a new house. But she didn't get a new house. She still has the same house since she was married 20 years ago. She didn't get a new refrigerator. She's still using the same one from 10 years ago. She didn't get any jewelry. And she doesn't put things into perspective that her friend or her sister or somebody else is perhaps well off, or they're newly married, or 1.5 million other reasons of why she got what she got. No, she just wants the same thing as other people. And that jealousy leads her to have just a little bit of hatred and resentment towards her husband, even though he didn't do anything. What did he do? He didn't buy her a new house? If you had to buy your wife a new house every time she wanted one, you'd have literally more property than Donald Trump. You'd have more property than major corporations. You can't buy a new house every time you want a new house. If you had to literally comply to every whim that somebody in your family wants, you'd have to be a trillionaire. So she doesn't put that into perspective. What did the husband do? He didn't buy a house? Okay, he didn't buy a house. He didn't buy you a car, but you have a car. He didn't buy you jewelry, but can't afford jewelry right now. Or it's not time to buy jewelry. Or there's other things that take priority. She doesn't put that into perspective. The only thing that she puts into perspective is that her sister got it. Her friend got it. Her enemy got it. Somebody else got it. And instead of only looking at what she has, she looks at what somebody else has. The worst is when people look at celebrities and they get addicted to watching the celebrity lifestyles, and then they think that they could live like those celebrities. I remember a story came to me years ago where a couple, I only knew the wife from childhood, which I didn't see for many years, and her brother came to me crying, asking me, like, what do you do in such a situation? The marriage is between his sister and a husband is literally in shambles. I said, what happened? Did he cheat? He goes, no, the guy works like a dog. He's the greatest. He's fine. He's great. I said, okay, so what's wrong with the marriage? He says that his sister is so addicted to living the life of a celebrity, she starts imagining herself as if she is a celebrity and has taken the life savings that they have, which was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $50,000, and instead of buying them a house, like they were planning on saving to buy a house, she went and she bought a bag that she saw one of her celebrity heroes have. She bought that bag, a $50,000 bag. Now again, if you are a billionaire, you want to spend $50,000 on a bag, it's a waste of money, but you can. You have billions of dollars. Your interest per day is more than that. But when you have a net worth of $50,000 and you don't even have barely enough money to finish the month, and you spend $50,000 on a bag, or even $5,000 on a bag, you are a sick person. And unfortunately, this is becoming a norm in society where people are spending every single penny that they have, and they borrow money that they don't have even a way to pay for, which is a sin, by the way. You're not allowed to borrow money you have no way of paying back. It's considered stealing. But needless to say, people are doing this not because they need these things, and sometimes not even because they want these things. It's because they're trying to be somebody that's in their imagination, like what they saw. There are entire businesses built on this type of premise, taking advantage of people's low minds. You have people making videos, the best place to vacation. A vacation of $1,000 versus a vacation of $100,000. And you'll see a video get literally millions of hits. Why? Because people want to see, what is a vacation for $100,000 like? Or let's compare a house for $10,000 versus a house for $10 million. And millions of people would watch these videos simply curious, what does a $10 million house with $100 million look like? Planes, a plane for $1, a plane for $1 billion, whatever it is. And you'll see millions of people tuning in. Even though they know they'll never be able to buy this $1 billion plane. They don't need to buy this $1 billion plane. Even the company or person that owns it doesn't want this plane anymore. And the best use of that plane was simply for that video, which is surely not worth $1 billion. Not that, or the yacht, or any of the other stuff that people get for that kind of money. But all it's for is simply show off. But the people that are watching the video, they want to imagine, what if I had this plane? What if I had this yacht? What if I had this house? What if I had this? What would I do? Nothing. You still go sleep. You still go to the bathroom. You still eat. You still put your pants on one leg at a time. Nothing changes. And the more a person lives in this imaginary state, the more they're going to be miserable. And the reason why they become miserable is because at some point, reality sets in. At some point, reality sets in when he realizes that that girl that he's looking at, he's never going to have her. He's never going to have her. Why? She's married. She's not interested. 1.5 million other reasons. The Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin says that there was one guy that wanted another girl. She wasn't interested. He went to the doctor. He said, "Doctor, I'm dying." Doctor said, "Why are you dying?" He said, "Because this girl next door doesn't want to marry me." He said, "All right, let me talk to the rabbi." "Hey, rabbi, my patient is dying. He's a Jew." He said, "Okay, why is he dying? Should we say Kaddish?" No, he's still alive. "Okay, so what's the problem?" "He wants to marry this girl." "Okay, so what's the problem? She doesn't want to marry him?" "No." "Okay, so find somebody else." No, he has to have her. "So can he, maybe she could show herself to him?" The rabbi says, "Let him die and not see her." Doctor comes back to the patient, goes, "Listen, patient, sorry, rabbi didn't go for it." "You're still dying?" "Yeah, I'm still dying." "All right, let me go back to the rabbi." "Rabbi, listen, he's still dying. He's dying even worse than yesterday. So maybe he could talk to her?" "For what? What is he going to talk to her about?" "No, he could talk to her about how much he's dying over her." Rabbi said, "Let him die and not talk to her. We don't have conversations between boys and girls just for the sake of desire. They talk either for the sake of getting married or because they're already married. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to talk. You should talk to your husband, not to your neighbor. Your neighbor comes over, tell him my husband's not here. Bye. Click. The end. Why? Platonic relationships are unhealthy. They become atomic relationships. Same thing with women that go into the business world. Make sure not to make friends that are the opposite gender, or ones that are attracted to the same gender. But needless to say, this guy came back to the doctor. He says, "Listen, doctor, I'm dying." And the doctor says, "Listen, I'll go back to the rabbi." He said, "Rabbi, the patient is still dying. You weren't willing to show her to him. You weren't willing for her to talk to him. But maybe, just maybe, they could talk. You could put a wall. And he's on the one side of the wall, and she's on the other side of the wall. And then he could just talk to her through the wall. You won't even see her. Just talk to her, just to hear her voice." The rabbi said, for what is he going to talk to her about? About how much he likes her. And he wants to marry her. But she said no. Yeah, but maybe he could just, get a relief out of it by hearing her voice. The rabbi said, let her die. Let him die. And not talk to a Bat Israel. Why? We're not here to fulfill your desires. We're here to protect our children. We're here to protect our people. There's no such thing as platonic relationships. There's no such thing as permitting all types of sick people to fulfill their desires because of their sickness. Your sickness doesn't have to become my tragedy. And one of the things that happens here is that people are consuming more and more ideas to fulfill their imagination. They're watching these videos, they're watching these shows, and they start living vicariously like all of these different celebrities, all of these different abominations, all of these different, literally, monsters, spiritual monsters that are just infecting people's minds. All of a sudden you have an entire society agree that pronouns should no longer be used. Why did nobody bring this up for the last several thousand years? Several thousand years. No one brought this up. Now, it became like a must. Several thousand years, everyone knew what's a male and what's a female. Now all of a sudden people don't know. Several thousand years, everyone knew pretty much the basics of humanity. Surely there's flaws, surely there's wars, surely there's all types of issues, but in general, people knew basic things. All of a sudden, no one knows anything anymore. This all comes from imagination. People allowing their imagination to run their life. And when they allow their imagination to run their life, they also allow their imagination to ruin their life. And they get impressed by all types of things, whether it be buildings or royal palaces or actions or inventions. They see this new AI as an extraordinary tool, which is right. It is an extraordinary tool, and I would love to have more people on our team that know how to use it in a positive way to bring more Torah to the world. But the people that don't know how to control their imagination, they see it as the culmination of one of the movies they saw 20 years ago of how the computers took over the world. And they think how the computers are somehow going to now build robots, and the robots are not going to want to be robots anymore, and somehow they're going to become a new segment of the civilization. Well, robots are going to walk around, they're going to go shopping, they're going to have relationships, maybe even have some little baby robots, all types of stupid things that people think they have. Why? Because they saw movies. They've allowed the fairy tales of all types of other sick people to enter their minds to the point where they think it's real. People actually believe this. And I'm not just talking about people that have never learned Torah, people that don't know what Torah is. Those, obviously, they have a lot of other sicknesses. I'm talking about religious people. People that know a little bit of Judaism, know a little bit. They ask a question. Rabbi, so do you think this new AI thing is dangerous? Why is it dangerous? I mean, there's certainly bad things you could do with everything. You could do bad things with a knife. You could also eat with a knife. You could do a lot of bad things with anything. But why is it dangerous? Oh, this AGI, how some people are saying it's in the next 2 years, you're going to have this whole thing for robots, and they're going to come, and maybe it's going to be like the movie, like the Terminator, and how they're going to make ships, and they're going to shoot people. Stop watching movies. Stop watching other people's imagination. If it's not written in the Torah, it doesn't exist. Oh, you're being closed-minded. No. You're being closed-minded. You're shutting down your mind, and you're allowing somebody else to infiltrate your mind. Their imagination has replaced your mind. My imagination has substance. Has me controlling it. And that's unfortunately one of the things that leads to a lot of problems. Because when a person does not allow themselves to control their mind can go anywhere. There's a few places that this can be applied in. One, if a person allows his imagination to control him or her, they start looking at people not as people, but as a number that they measure up against some type of standard, imaginary standard. So if they're in the business world, they would look at things like I used to look at things when I was in the business world. I don't have time to waste. I was making $3,500 an hour or so, $3,300 an hour. So for me to go meet somebody, that had to be a reason that's much more valuable than that few $1,000s. Why? Because the way I looked at a person is that if I can make more than that per hour dealing with you, it's worth it for me to deal with you. If not, then I have to go find somebody else's. So you start looking at people, and literally after years of doing it, years of doing business and doing, lots and lots of $1 billion in business or so, you start looking at people and within seconds tell you, oh, yeah, that guy's got $1.5 million in the market, probably about $2 million in real estate, and maybe a couple $100,000 in liquid. That guy, he probably has $1 million negative net worth. He has no money whatsoever, but he's looking for a job. That other guy, he's the boss, but he doesn't. And you start looking at people and how much they have and how much they don't have, and you start realizing that you forgot the humanity. And this happens when people are so infatuated with their business, so infatuated with their job, so infatuated with their success, they forget the humanity aspect of it. They forget the people part of it. I heard a monetarily successful business person say just the other day, if you want to succeed, look for the products that help people that are self-conscious. Meaning, people complain about stuff. People complain about being fat. People complain about acne. People complain about, whatever people complain about. Find products for what people complain about. Whatever they don't feel confident about, find a product for that. Now, although that is a valid business advice, it's sad. It's sad that this has become the norm. Because you're not looking at, go into business so you can help people. You're looking at, look at people's flaws and then try to cater to that flaw. Instead of looking at it from a human perspective, which is, I'm in the business, so yes, one, I need to make a living, but two, I need to help people. They're not looking at it from that perspective. They're simply looking at, where is the flaw in society now? Go there. Go there. That's how you can make money. Now, this is not a new reality. This has always been the case. This unfortunately, is a part of the flaw of humanity. But when a person looks at, allows their imagination to run their life, if they're obsessed with with money, they'll start looking at people that way. They're also going to be very jealous people, because they're gonna, anytime they're gonna encounter anybody, and they say, somebody else that their neighbor, their friend, whoever it is, they encounter, they say, listen, we're having a get together at my house. Why don't you come? And the person says, no, I'm sorry, I'm going away on vacation. Oh, vacation! All of a sudden, the accounting head went on his head. Vacation? Where's he going on vacation? How much does vacation cost? Where are you going? Now, he doesn't actually care where he's going for, to be happy for him. He's trying to figure out how much it costs. Oh, yeah, we're going to, we're going to Hawaii. Oh, Hawaii. Well, Hawaii, I checked on Hawaii. Hawaii is $6,000 a ticket. Why, you going by yourself? No, I'm taking a family. Whoa, family, how many kids do you have? He has 5 kids. Whoa, you're spending, $40,000 on just tickets? Yeah, well, well, that's hotel. Hold on a second. Hotel. He's doing accounting. Wait, you're spending $50,000, $100,000 just to go to a vacation? Hold on a second. Did I ask you for any money? Did I borrow the money from you? Like, what do you care how much money I'm spending on vacation? But that's what happens. That's what happens many times. People are so infatuated with money and materialism, they forget the human aspect of it. They forget that it's none of your business. They forget that you should have never asked in the first place. They forget the fact that you should be happy that somebody else is successful. They forget the fact that literally all of this stuff is completely unnecessary. If he's going on a vacation that costs $100,000, apparently he can afford it. And if he can't, he's stupid, so you should feel bad for him. If you're jealous of the fact that he has $100,000, then you are partially a heretic because you believe that Hashem gave him what belongs to you. And what happens is, Rabotai, is that when a person develops this type of personality, it's not only that they become a person that is very difficult to like to such a person that's jealous and always looking and counting your money and things like that, but it actually becomes a problem with their relationship between them and Hashem, because they're never going to be happy with whatever Hashem gives them, because they're always going to look at somebody else. And what ends up happening is that Hashem is going to give them what they need to eat. Hashem is going to give them what they need to sleep. Hashem is going to give them what they need to live in. He's going to give them whatever they need. But they're going to forget to even say thank you to Hashem and almost feel like, I can't believe Hashem has only given me this. As if Hashem owes them something. I can't believe that this guy has all that, and all that Hashem has given me is this. What? You're complaining about what Hashem gave you because he gave more to somebody else? Did you say thank you for the air that you breathe? Did you pay for it? No. How much would you pay for it if you ran out of air? If you were drowning right now, how much money would you give for one little breath of air? How much would you give? Guess what? If you were the richest man in the world, with $1 trillion in the bank, you would give that $1 trillion for one more breath of air. And you have many breaths of air every single day for free. Did you pay Hashem for the hearing that you have? Well, guess what? The person that's deaf, can't hear. If you had $1 trillion in the bank and you told him, listen, I need that $1 trillion just to fix your hearing. The only way to fix your hearing is with all of the money that you have. He'd give that money in a heartbeat. Just to hear one more time. His kids say, I love you. His wife say, I love you. Her husband say, I love you. One time. To hear a prayer, to hear shofar. One time. He'd give all the money. To hear one time. But you get it for free. Did you say thank you for that? Oh no. It's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be that way. The person that has 20 restaurants, best chefs in the world, but he has diabetes or some other disease where he can't taste any of the food. If you told him, listen, I can cure your illness, but it's going to cost you all 20 restaurants. You're going to lose all 20 restaurants, but for the first time in your life, you're going to be able to eat again like a regular person. Guess what? They'll give you all of it. They'll give you every single restaurant. Just give me my life back. What? All that for the food? No, it's not the food. It's to have life back. Person that can't eat like a regular person doesn't feel like he can live. All the money in the world is not going to make him happy. Like one simple meal that he can taste without being worried about his life. I know an avrech that was born with this condition. And it's so severe, he has to have a catheter constantly in his arm. He has to give himself shots every single day. And he has like an emergency needle for any time the sugar goes up drastically in a short period of time. Literally, he has to give like an emergency, like somebody dying. If he doesn't get it, he dies. The kid's maybe 25 years old. Thin, looks healthy, strong like a bull, but he has this condition. Every meal, he has to think 50 times of whether this or that, all types of cat can't eat, can't act like a normal person. You tell that person, listen, give me all the money that you have. Give me whatever you have just to have a normal life. He'll give it to you. Why? It's not for the food. It's to have life back. But you have it. Did you say thank you? Do you appreciate it? The reality is, Rabotai Kareem, that when we're jealous of other people, after we followed our imagination, it's only because we are ungrateful for what we already have. And when a person is ungrateful for what they already have, then certainly they don't deserve any more. And needless to say, even if they got more, they would be ungrateful for the more they got. This is one of the downfalls, catastrophic downfalls of being a person that lives through their imagination. In today's society, people complain about the media day and night of how the media is feeding them all types of lies, while they're replacing that media with a different form of media. They're complaining about the CNNs and the Fox News and whatever other New York Times. They're complaining about them, that they're liars. Now, they're right. They're all liars. But guess what? How do you know they're all liars? Because somebody else from a different form of media, independent media. Yeah, right, independent. They replaced them on the YouTube and the Rumbles and the all other types of media. They're replacing them. So you replaced one set of liars with a different set of liars. Why? Because you are not allowing yourself to see things clearly. Instead, you're living your life based on other people's imagination, other people's interests, other people's craziness, in so many words. So you don't want their craziness anymore. You don't want their agenda anymore. So you replaced it with somebody else. Somebody else usually is jealous of the first one. So the guys that are now telling you about all these conspiracies and all this nonsense that they sell you about how the whole world's going to end and how they're aliens and how the government is hiding something, as if it's all new news. It's all old news. Anyone's finding out right now either is an infant or is stupid. It's all old news. Who cares? Care about things that matter. People spend an extraordinary amount of time arguing about whether the earth is flat or not. Extraordinary amount of time determining whether aliens exist or not. Extraordinary amount of time whether the government stole this amount or that amount. Who cares? What is that going to do in your life anyway? The earth is flat, the earth is round. Who cares? How is that going to make you a better person? How is that going to make you a better wife, a better husband, a better employee, a better boss, a better human? How is that going to make you anything? If you're right or if you're wrong, you're still in the same place. You can't leave it. Or they worry about the aliens. Why? Why are you worried about the aliens? Because even if they came and they wanted to take somebody, it wouldn't be you. They would want to take somebody that did something with their life instead of just wonder about aliens all day. Or the best yet, the government is corrupt. Welcome to society. Government are supposed to be corrupt. That's why they're there. It's a bunch of people that want to justify their corruption through making it legal. What's new? It's nothing new. Oh, but the corruption here, and he really, who cares? What is that going to do for you if you know that he did this and he did that and he stole this? Can you get any of that? Can you do any of that? No, it doesn't make a difference to you. Oh, but you have to vote for him. You actually still believe that your vote counts? With one demented person after another in office in the United States over the last 20 years, you still believe that your actual vote counts? Literally, you have some of the most brilliant minds in the world in society today, and not a single one of them is even running for office in the last, I don't know, at least 50 years. You still think your vote counts? People spend an enormous amount of time arguing about this position and that position. Who cares? How is that going to make your life any better? You're living in imagination. You're imagining that your opinion counts in politics, even when you're not a politician. You're imagining your opinion counts about finances, even though you barely have a net worth that's enough to be middle class. You're imagining that talking about your neighbors is somehow going to smooth out the situation. You're imagining all types of things. Live your life. Make something of yourself. Be somebody productive that helps society. Do something useful. Instead of living in an imaginary world. A world full of jealousy and animosity that really has nothing of value to offer. Somebody meets you for the first time, all you can talk about is every conspiracy theory under the sun. You business can't be done with you. You can't be hired. No one would want to marry you. And needless to say, have kids. Literally, you're a danger to society. But you still think that the world is at fault. It's important for a person to know that if you allow your imagination to run your life, it will ruin it. Now, of course, if a person allows that imagination to go into the way they look at people sexually, this could lead to some of the most awful places. As I said before, it could lead to promiscuity. It can lead to all types of horrible things, but there are times where it can lead to places that people can never even imagine. Now, if you ask the average rabbi, especially young rabbis, if it's good to go to the mikveh, now, of course, a woman that's married, a Jewish woman that's married, must go to the mikveh once a month. That's for fulfilling the family purity laws. If she's not married, she cannot go to the mikveh. It's not allowed. But a man can go to the mikveh whenever he wants, but he doesn't have to. It's good for purity. It's good for a person that wants to purify themselves. If you ask the average rabbi, is it good for me to go to the mikveh? Average rabbi that's young is going to tell you, yeah, of course, you should do it. Even do it a few times a week. But if you ask a more experienced rabbi, they're not going to tell you it's good right away. They're going to ask you, who? Who wants to go to the mikveh? And why? Why who? Why? Because it all depends on the reason of why you're going to the mikveh. And there was a few times over the last few years that I've told men that they should not go to the mikveh, ever. Not only they shouldn't go to the mikveh, they should never go to the mikveh. In one case, I told a few people not to go to the mikveh because they told me about all the immodesty that goes on in that mikveh, how people use that place as a place to socialize instead of a place to purify. So if that's the only mikveh that they had in that community, then certainly they should never go there. But in other cases, I've had, unfortunately, a situation, a few times it's happened, where men that had attraction to the same gender asked me if they should continue going to the mikveh. In some cases they were married, in other cases they were single. In all cases I told them, never ever go to the mikveh. No, but isn't that purity? No, it's not purity, not for you. For you, it's putting yourself in front of a test that you cannot handle. You are not allowed to go to the mikveh. For you to go to the mikveh is a sin. It's 100% a sin from the Torah for you to go to the mikveh. Why? You have, unfortunately, an imagination that's damaged. And that damaged imagination is going to cause more harm than any purity you could possibly gain out of that mikveh. So the more experience that a rabbi has, the more he can give advice. But that experience also requires an imagination. Because you can't just assume that everything is by the book. That this law applies to everyone. This recommendation applies to everyone. This custom applies to everyone. You have to understand things based on their circumstance. This is also the reason why, for all of the people that think that AI is somehow going to take over the world of the Torah, it can never happen. Because even if you could program an AI's algorithm or AI's code to give you the answers, they could only answer superficially. They can never answer answers based on specific circumstances that require a relationship with people, an understanding of people, and different things that a computer could never do. Now, when it comes to the world of Torah, we're not saying that imagination is bad. In fact, imagination is required in order for you to achieve big things in the world of Torah. Because if a person goes into the next segment that the Chazon Ish says, that its adversary, the intellect, loves the intellectual side of reality and favors the scales, covets the laws of mathematics and reasoning, and is drawn to the rules of research, that reality check, that intellect is critical, but is either more destructive than imagination or very, very healthy. Meaning, if you have an imagination and a person is in a situation where he sees a woman that's not his wife, it's somebody else's wife, or she's not married, but he's already married. If he allows his imagination to control his life, he's going to try to commit a sin. Because he's thinking about all the imaginary, terrible things without thinking about reality. But if his reality, his intellect comes in and says, wait a minute, hold on a second. You're about to make a sin. First and foremost, do you realize that this is a daughter of HaShem? You're going to do that with that? Number two, do you realize that you're married? Your wife that gave you her entire life, brought kids to the world, she sacrificed her body. Each time she gives birth, it literally breaks her body from inside. If a man understood the amount of suffering that a woman endures just to bring birth, just to bring a child to the world, they'd literally kiss their feet every single day just to say thank you for one kid. Their organs are in different places in the body. She has to wait for them to come back into shape. Takes 1.5 to 2.5 years in a normal condition. They gain weight, they lose weight, they gain weight, they lose weight, they go up, they go down. They're constantly, the hormones are all over the place. What does she do that for? For you. She's not obligated to have kids. You are. She may want kids, but she could have had kids with anybody. She doesn't need you for that. On top of that, she takes care of you in all types of ways. She cooks, she cleans, she works, whatever she does, she's for you. And you're going to go what? And abandon her because of some zonah? That's what you're going to do. That's the reality check. But then the reality check are like, wait, hold on a second. So you're going to do that. And you realize that at some point, it's very possible and even likely that HaShem is going to make sure that your kids find out that that's what you did. And maybe your 5-year-old kid, your 10-year-old kid doesn't know all the things that he needs to know in school. But he's going to know if his father or the mother is a liar, is a cheater, is a bad person. And guess what? He will continue knowing that as he gets older. When people ask him about his parents, he's always going to have to start the conversation with, oh yeah, they got divorced. Oh, wow. Wow, how did you handle it? And he's going to constantly have to answer how he handled it, how it traumatized him, how he was only 10 years old or 15 years old when his parents got divorced. And it changed his perspective on life, and it changed his perspective on marriage, and he doesn't believe in marriage anymore. Or he does, or he wants to be better, or he wants to be worse. And literally, that one act could change that kid's life forever. Do you think about that? Do you think about that before you went with the person that treats themselves like a garbage pail? Everyone's allowed to touch? Do you think about that? No. Do you think about the fact that that person could very well be married to somebody else? And the same exact thing will happen on the opposite end. So when a person has reality check in, it could contain the imagination and put it in the right perspective to get you away from bad things. But it's not always the case. Because if you have someone that has the guts to use their imagination for good things, he wants to build something that has never been built before, that could be for the good of society. He wants to say things that will help society, even though no one wants to say them. He wants to tell people the truth about the Torah, while very few people are willing to do it because it may cost them donations, it may cost them popularity. So they don't want to say it, but he wants to do it. Or he wants to go and finish the entire Talmud Bavli in 1 year. When the average person says if you finish it in a lifetime, it's already a big deal. But he wants to go do it in 1 year. He wants to do it in 52 days. He wants to do it in a ridiculous number. He wants to do things that the average person simply doesn't even think about. He wants to do it. If the reality sets in, he will never do those things. Why? Because he says, listen, I want to build a ship that does all types of wonderful things that help society. And people got to tell him, oh, what ship? What are you doing? It's too expensive. It's too much. It's too this. It's too that. He says, I want to tell people the truth. I want to help them with the truth of the Torah. No, come on. It's not going to get you the donations. You're not going to be popular. No one's going to invite you. No one this, no one that. I want to learn a lot. I want to make my life just learning to the point where literally I eat and breathe Torah. Oh, come on, but how are you going to eat? How are you this? And they bring you all of these realities that are their realities. And those realities are the realities of lawyers. You know what the reality of a lawyer is? Lawyers are known as deal breakers, not deal makers, because they bring such realities many times and destroy deals. Sometimes you need a lawyer in order to remind you of things that the imagination simply went too far on. But many times, and I would say even more times than not, lawyers are the ones that bring a reality that's completely antithetical to any imagination whatsoever, where they destroy it. And sometimes people have friends and family that are those types of lawyers. You tell them that you want to build something that's completely innovative, never been done before. And tell you, nah, come on, you're crazy. Go get a regular job and do what everybody else does. Be a sheep. I want to say such and such. Oh, come on, why do you have to always stand out? Just say what everybody else says. Oh, I want to achieve such and such. Ah, it's too much for you. It's too much for you. How do you know what's too much for me? Did I ask you what's too much for me? And unfortunately, right now, we have many people being taught by such people, such family members, such friends, such leaders that are these types of people where they limit everyone that's around them because of their reality. Their reality, they assume is everybody else's reality. I remember when we first started giving lectures, one of the things that drove me crazy at the time is when I would speak to different rabbis and ask them, why don't you tell your community, or in the speech that you had, about how important keeping Shabbat is. And it's not just a suggestion, and if they don't keep Shabbat, they're considered the equivalent of a idol worshiper. Why don't you put things in perspective for them? Come on, listen. They didn't go to religious school. They don't know what keeping Shabbat is. They can't keep it. How do you know they can't keep it? What, do they have like some big sign on their shirt saying, I can't keep Shabbat? Do they have a resume that says, I can do everything except keep Shabbat? How do you know they can't keep Shabbat? Why do you assume that they're spiritually retarded? Why? Why do you assume that no one except you can do it? You can keep Shabbat, but they can't. You can learn Torah, but they can't. You can keep kosher, but they can't. Why? Because they went to a public school or they didn't get the right upbringing, so therefore they have to stay that way? Why don't you tell that to every single success story in anything in history? How do you explain them? How do you explain the fact that you have our Torah still alive 3,334 years after it was given to us, despite the pogroms, the inquisitions, the enemies from within that we've had? How do you explain that? If everyone was like what you describe, spiritually Baalei Mum, spiritually deficient, then why did Hashem pick us? If we can't do anything, why did you choose? Who gave you the right to choose what we can do? And that's one of the things that would drive me insane. Like, they would tell me, I'm not telling them because they can't handle it. Why do you think they can't handle the truth? Why do you think they can do a lot of other things, but they can't handle this? Why not? Why can't they handle this? And this, Rabotai, is very important for a person to know that you need your imagination. You need your imagination because at times, the reality that will surround you will try to destroy you, will try to limit you, will try to disable you from being as successful as you can be. And there are times where that imagination will be like the imagination of the serpent. It would literally be a venom that kills the most venomous creature. So how do you know the difference? In short, it all depends on what the purpose is. What's the purpose of your imagination? And what's the purpose for that reality? And to delve into those two, we're going to have to tune in next week. We continue this series and continue building up our imagination in a healthy way and our reality to coincide just as healthy. Thank you very much for learning with me. May Hashem bless each and every single one of you. And BeEzrat Hashem, we'll learn more later this week.
What happened? How did you discover Rabbi Reuven or the organization?
I met Rabbi Reuven, I believe it was also on YouTube, and I was inspired by his story about how he returned. So it was kind of similar to mine. You know, he was also an immigrant to the United States and a secular lifestyle. The stories that he told about Hashem took back his millions, it kind of, resonated with me. I started listening to him more, but most of the time I would listen to his lectures, and he does a good job in answering questions during the lecture. Most of the questions I had, he already answered them for me. So I never talked to him one-on-one. I would email him from time to time if I had difficult questions, but most of the time when I listened to his lectures, he would answer my questions.